And Megan Fox here at PJ Media is explaining.
What's tip 4?
Well, don't trust women. I think you just touched on that with your Dancing with the Stars.
You can still love me.
I do. I love you all the time. But our First Amendment rights are huge. They are very important to me. They should be important to everyone. Don't be a public official if you don't want to be filmed, ma'am.
Megan Fox.
Yes.
Welcome back to the live stream, everybody. I'm Megan Fox with PJ Media. I am live today, unusually on a Saturday, because there is breaking news with Jared and Arianna. We talked to them last week about fighting with DFS in Missouri, in Lawrence County specifically, where sheriffs don't seem to know the definition of exigent circumstances. And I played those audios for you, where exigent circumstances just are whatever they think they are, whatever they say they are, purely subjective. And currently, we have Jared and Arianna are calling in to talk about what led to this situation with Missouri DFS. And we do believe that they are currently still, the DFS is currently still trying to take custody now of the baby who's been born. And Jared and Arianna, if you could just tell people, how did you end up in this situation in the first place? Because we really didn't get into that the last time we spoke.
Yeah, sure. So both of us were raised in Utah, and in Utah, we were a part of a cult organization, and when we realized that the organization we were with had cult behavior and cult practices, we immediately began distancing ourselves from with this organization. At first, we attempted to get a restraining order against people who had harassed us and harmed us. Those attempts failed in the Utah courts.
They didn't fail in Utah courts. We didn't actually follow through with them. When we were filed for the protective order, it was against one of our minor children and family members. There was abuse reported, and we were trying to protect the kids. And prior to the hearing, we were intimidated, but in a different instance where they were trying to intimidate us to not follow through with the protective order. And so it was partly fear from the intimidation that was happening, and a wish to protect our minor child from the trauma of having to testify, that we just withdrew it. We never actually followed through completely on it because of what they were doing. So,
and that was at the advice of counsel.
That was the advice of legal counsel, and just kind of considering all things considered there. So,
and to be clear, after filing for the restraining order, I was at work one day when my brothers showed up at my place of work and attempted to talk to me when I had already told them not to contact me in other way other than by email because of the situation and how severe it was. So I left work late. It was dark. I walked out the door of the building and I saw them waiting at the end of the ramp at the entrance to my workplace. And I immediately recognized them. So I walked the other way toward my car. They approached me quickly and said that they wanted to get a ride with me because they were having car trouble. I told them that's not going to happen. And I quickly got in my car, closed the door and locked it. And one of my brothers tried to open the door to get in without my permission. I immediately left and got out of the situation, thankfully. And
then filed a police report about it.
That's correct. I filed a police report because they had gone against my wishes. I told them not to contact me like that. And this happened shortly before the hearing for the restraining order. So on the advice of counsel, in order to protect the innocent, we chose to withdraw because it was only going to become more traumatizing for everyone involved. And that's
in the courtroom when we were meeting prior to the hearing, that same brother physically intimidated me in the courtroom in front of the judge, and he had to ask him to move himself across the room and leave me alone.
And this was in let me just clarify that we're talking about in a Utah court.
Yes,
this is all in a Utah court
Okay.
before we were able to make the big move to Missouri, which we did in order to give us, some great physical distance between us and the perpetrators, so that we could hopefully get some safety.
Now, it makes it very difficult that this situation, you were both born into a cult. You were raised in this cult. Your family members are in the cult, and the family members are the perpetrators. Now, you also went to federal law enforcement about the cult. You went to...
They actually came to us.
Oh, they
What
did?
happened
Okay.
is we'd already moved to Missouri, and they were in Utah conducting a very large investigation regarding other victims of the cult. And they were interviewing, I'm not sure how many, but I know it was a large number of victims. And they had spoken to other victims who where they had mentioned us, so they knew that there was corroboration there, and they reached out to us and wanted to come and interview us out here in Missouri. It took me a while before I felt safe enough to consent to that, but eventually I did, and they flew a team out to Missouri to conduct interviews regarding the abuse that was going on, that we experienced growing up in the cult, specifically, child trafficking and exploitation that we experienced. So,
And this is Homeland Security. That's the federal agency that contacted you.
correct.
The Department of Homeland Security. And they have been conducting an investigation into this cult for the last at least 2 years that we know of. Is that correct?
They opened it, I believe, in December of 2019, and it's ongoing.
It's ongoing. So you're in the middle of a Homeland Security, a Department of Homeland Security investigation for the cult, which abused your children, that you have court records in Utah and now in Missouri, because the perpetrators followed you to Missouri and continued their intimidation and abuse. You believe that they continued to intimidate you in Missouri because you spoke to Homeland Security. Is that correct?
Well, yes, they did tell me that they were punishing, me for making reports, both to local law enforcement and to Homeland Security. And then so we've reported 3 incidents here, and the third report is the report that I made when they took the children from our custody. And in that incident, it was just prior to the scheduled protective order hearing. I had filed for a protective order here against the perpetrators. So here in Missouri, I filed a protective order, and prior to that hearing is the incident that I reported that where they had come and assaulted and attempted to intimidate me not to follow through with that hearing.
And they did that in your home. They attacked you in your home. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that is
in our home and also on the property there.
Okay.
Yep.
And that seems, and Lawrence County Sheriff, they're the ones who you called to report that crime. They did not arrest anyone for that crime. However, you did get a protective order, so a court has recognized that crime happened. Is that correct?
Yes, I went, I believe it was on April 28th, so that's after the investigation on the incident had been happening for quite some time. And I went in, 9 months pregnant, to the courthouse and went through the protective order hearing process, and the judge, there was testimony given by members of our families from Utah, and then I presented all the evidence that I had put together and presented to the judge, and the judge immediately granted a full order of protection. So
you have an order of protection against these people, but the sheriffs never arrested any of them, and there were 3 people involved in the attack on you. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And they won't tell you what investigation, if any, is even being done into this incident. Is that correct?
Correct. They have not communicated any of that to us.
But they did take your children. based on
Yes.
what I believe is they're claiming it's failure to protect, but it seems like they're trying to say that this incident did not happen, and yet you have a court record that it did happen because a judge issued you a protective order against these people.
That's correct.
That's crazy. Okay, so currently, because Lawrence County has taken custody of your other children, they're claiming that they have the right to take your newborn baby. And I know you can't get into too much of this because it's an ongoing thing. And so if you can't answer any of these questions, that's okay. Just tell me to move on. We'll move on. And I just want the audience to understand that if Jared and Arianna can't answer any questions, they're under some very difficult circumstances with the court that we all know, as I've been reporting, is a very secretive organization is Family Court. And they like to put out these orders and demands that the families that they are currently investigating are not allowed to speak to you, not allowed to tell the public their story. So if Jared and Arianna don't want to answer a question or they skip over things, most likely it's because of that. And I can't tell you, I don't know, but I just want you to understand that it's not, they're not trying to avoid answering questions. Let's talk more. Christy Felnecki is actually their attorney. She's just joined the program. I'm going to put her.
She's representing Jared, but she's not representing me.
That's right. Hi, Christy. So Christy is representing Jared. Jared and Arianna have different attorneys. They were required to get different attorneys. And so Christy is representing Jared. Now, just to let you know, Christy, you'll be able to hear Jared and Arianna, but they won't be able to hear you. So if you have any questions for them, I'll just repeat it. And just so you know, guys, you won't be able to hear her because I've got headphones in. Christy, why don't you go ahead and tell us, what is your opinion of what's been going on up until this point, and have you made any progress in protecting this family from CPS, which we can't understand why they're doing what they're doing right now to victims of a crime that has been acknowledged by a court of law?
Can you hear me okay, Megan?
I can hear you just fine, yes.
Okay. I don't have my headset in, so I'm getting some feedback, but as long as you can hear me, it's fine.
Yeah.
I do want to say a few things. Some feedback that I've gotten from certain individuals regarding this case. I represent, as you mentioned, I represent Mr. Cope, Jared. And he came to me, and this is in the public domain. This is not talking about the particular case, because he was distressed that his wife was having their 8th baby and that this child would be taken away. And the 7 children, have been taken. The rules of the court, as you mentioned earlier, of juvenile court, it's secret. And so you're not allowed to talk about the proceedings. And now that I'm on the case, I can't talk about that. But I do represent Jared. I just want to say I can talk about what happened to them prior to this case. And, I can talk about the restraining order that occurred earlier because I wasn't part of that. I wasn't the attorney and I didn't know them. I wasn't involved in that. But these people, I just want to say, are victims of a crime. There was never any allegations that they were abusing their children. It was because these people were coming and attacking them. And I mentioned this on your previous interview, that there is an issue called collateral estoppel, and there is evidence in another case that's already been heard and decided upon in their favor, mind you, in the Cope's favor, saying that these people were coming and insulting them and attacking them. So there's already evidence in the same county. And so you cannot retry questions of law or fact in another case. So that's very, very important for people to understand that there's already evidence in the same county that they have been victims of a crime. They've been treated like common criminals. And, it's too bad that I understand in courts that you have to maintain secrecy for the children, and in some custody cases.
I don't understand that at all, Christy. Maintaining secrecy, I think, is something that should never be done in a court of law in America. This is not North Korea.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm just saying, as far as, naming the children's names.
Sure. Well, we would never do that. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying I can understand withholding, and that's where I was going, withholding addresses and withholding names of children, and just so people can't find them and attack them. But and I know that you would never do that, but there's some journalists that are not as honest as you also. But I'm telling you that the family law court system in Missouri would be better served if there was transparency, and if the media could get in, and that if the attorneys could talk about their cases with the permission of their clients. In general, the family law and the juvenile system would work a lot better if everything was open.
I agree with that very much.
This is a big problem. I was reading a lot of articles about this in Britain and other places. There's, in Britain, there's a incentive, and we have that in the United States. There's a federal statute that it was actually passed to help the number of adoptions, to increase adoptions. Britain has seen the number of adoptions skyrocket because they're trying to get kids out of the foster care system. It's called CAPTA, but it also gives financial incentives to the states. We're trying to follow the money in certain states in order to adopt children out. I'm not implying that that's going on in this case, because, the court.
Well, we do have a law here. We have a law here, the American Safe Families Act, that was put into law in 1997, signed by Bill Clinton, which does incentivize adoptions. It incentivizes adoptions out of foster care, and they have, it's a lie when states try to tell you that, oh no, it doesn't incentivize us to take children from biological families. Yes, it does. Yes, it absolutely does. It attaches a number to the head of each child. It attaches a dollar amount. And I don't know how you see that as anything less than child trafficking. I know that's how I see it. I want to ask Jared and Arianna a question, since we know that you're under, you're scared to talk about the entire process here because you've been threatened with contempt of court and all kinds of other things. I want to just ask a general question about, how does it feel to be told your First Amendment rights are void?
I feel like I'm being prosecuted for a crime as if I'm guilty of something, and I'm not given the opportunity to show that I'm innocent. I was raised with the understanding that we are innocent before being, unless proven guilty. I feel like in this case, we're placed in a position where we are guilty, and we're presumed guilty, and now we're forced in a position where we have to prove our innocence, but we can't talk about the details. We can't.
Right. You're put in this position where you are supposed to be proving how innocent you are, but you're not allowed to talk about it. So how in the world are you supposed to do that? It is a catch-22. It is absolutely unwinnable. And this is something that has to stop. It has to stop. These unconstitutional limits on free speech in family court just has to stop. Arianna, did you have any thoughts about that as well, about how that makes you feel to be told, depending on what you say, you could be thrown in jail on the order of a judge who decides they think that you violated their rule of secrecy?
It's terrifying. I mean, I went into this just wanting help, and it feels awful. It feels re-traumatizing.
It's troubling to me because we have evidence that these individuals have committed a crime against us. If we didn't have that evidence, we wouldn't have gotten the restraining order in the very same court.
That's right.
And so to now not acknowledge that, and even now, more than 6 weeks after this has happened, to not have the opportunity yet to even speak in our defense has been so traumatizing. To experience what we've already had from the perpetrators, to fight our way to get some help, to get away from them, to move 1,400 miles away, to try and help our kids feel safe given the circumstances, and then to have something happen again and reach out for help, and then have the weight of this system fall upon us and place us in a position like this has been almost unbearable.
I can imagine. I mean, leaving a cult is not something for the faint of heart. It's not something that weak people do. You know, leaving a cult, being involved in a cult is a lot easier than leaving a cult. I think we've all watched enough documentaries on cults, and there's, this is a very popular topic right now. It's very, people are watching these documentaries on Netflix about cults, watching about, and there's so many of them out there right now. I know I'm totally addicted to this stuff. There was the Nexium thing that people get involved in these things, and especially you have no chance if you're born into one. If you're born into a cult, you're in that cult, and getting out of it is very, very difficult. Christy, let me ask you something. As the attorney here, and that Homeland Security is involved in investigating this cult activity. Is there any way that you can contact Homeland Security to alert them to what has happened to these people with Lawrence County sheriffs and how they're being treated? I mean, Homeland Security knows about the danger of this cult. Clearly, if they've been investigating it for 2 years and they've taken statement after statement of victims, maybe they need to be informed that these people are being persecuted by the Lawrence County Sheriff's Department and the CPS and DF Children's Services of Missouri.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I don't want to totally give away any of the strategy of the legal case.
Right. Yeah, don't do that.
It's frustrating for this family and for other families when you have to try to think outside the box and what you're going to do in the legal system. And so, I mean, it's very frustrating because, like you said, how are you supposed to be able to defend yourself when it's secret and nobody is helping you? And like I said last week, which is already in the public domain, who do you go to help you? I mean, when you can't find attorneys that'll be your advocate, when you get frustrated in judiciary, when you have law enforcement that is not helping you, hopefully it is under federal investigation in terms of, what they said with the cult and their background. So most definitely, I mean, the strategy is try to do everything you can. I mean, you throw spaghetti against the wall and you try to see what sticks. But, the thing I keep coming back to is, this is America. I mean, this is happening in our own country. We're not talking about China.
I know this is not North Korea. How is this even happening? It's a good question. So yeah, I agree with you that it's not a good idea to give away any strategy. So I just wanted to put that out there as, if a federal law enforcement is looking into this, perhaps they can do something about how these people are being persecuted by the sheriff's department and the child services. It does seem to me, and this is just my opinion. It's not from anything that, they've told me or anything. It just seems to me like through the conversations that I've had with the Lawrence County Sheriff's Department, and I talked to 2 sheriff's officers there, one was a lieutenant and one was a deputy, seems to me from my conversations with them and what they understand are exigent circumstances, there is no definition. It is totally subjective. It's up to the officers. And it seems to me like they are colluding with the juvenile officer of Children's Division to do whatever the juvenile officer says. You heard Lieutenant Ford on the phone with me say, I'm not going to question them. I'm not going to question a judge. I'm going to do whatever the judge says. Is that the sheriff's job, Christy? Is that the sheriff's job to do whatever a judge says and ignore the Constitution of the United States?
Yeah, unfortunately, now that I'm on the case, I can't talk about those specifics. But let me just say this in general, because I wanted to finish kind of what I was thinking earlier.
Sure.
Is that, in the United States right now, look at what's happening. We have criminals walking across our border into our country that have committed heinous crimes that are going to cities. And these people are roaming the streets. And I keep coming back that these people have not even, my client, Jared, and his wife, Jared's my client, but they have not committed any crime themselves. They are victims of a crime and they're going to take their kids. And meanwhile, we have criminals walking the streets that are murdering people. I mean, these are 2 loving parents that love their kids, that want to be with their kids. And I just can't wrap my head around it. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I don't understand what's going on either. Jared and Arianna, I just want to let you see if there's anything else that you want to make the public aware of, please do so. I don't want to lead you in any certain way. I just want you to be able to tell people what you're feeling and how you're and how this has affected you. And go ahead and just share whatever you want to say.
I would like to say, please put yourself in this position. If you have children, how would you feel if you reported a crime and then instead of getting the support and the help you needed, they came in and took your children and assumed you were a guilty party? We're not, I mean, it's beyond comprehension how horrible this experience has been, and to have to go through this when we're already trying to cope with the trauma of the crimes committed against us, and then to now be faced with trying to prove our innocence in the matter when there's already evidence and a restraining order is in place.
Well, to be clear, when he says prove our innocence, there's no charges being made of any crimes or abuse against us as the parents.
That's correct, but it feels like we're being treated like criminals. I mean,
yeah, in a way, you are being treated like criminals, and yet there are no criminal allegations against you. Yet the family court system is treating you, and Children's Division is treating you like you're some kind of fugitives of the law.
Yeah.
Well, they are. And there are things I can't talk about that, but you're treating these people like fugitives. It is outrageous. It is ridiculous. I don't believe these children are in any danger of being harmed by their parents. They're in danger of being harmed by cult members who are, after these people for leaving. If anything, Homeland Security ought to be putting these people in a witness protection program and not allowing them to be persecuted by Lawrence County sheriffs. That's my opinion. I'm saying it, and I'm tired of this kind of persecution against parents who just want to parent their children. Jared and Arianna, why don't we talk about going back and leaving this cult? I truly believe this is probably going to be made into one of those documentaries at some point. It's going to end up on television or as a movie because it's a really large problem. And it is extremely shocking, the kind of allegations that are coming out about this cult, which includes widespread child sexual abuse. And this is something that people are going to have to come to grips with, that this is going on all over the country. Everybody knows that cults are prolific, cults are everywhere. And when this hits the fan, if this investigation with Homeland Security ever gets done, it's going to blow this whole thing wide open. One of the commenters is saying, why the hell not move to another state? They did. They moved from Utah to Missouri running from this cult, and the cult followed them. And now Missouri is they didn't know Missouri was a hotbed of child services nightmares. They didn't know that. They didn't know they were going to go to Missouri, call the cops, and have the cops take their kids when they were victims of crime. So anyway, Jared and Arianna, if you could talk about what it took for you to be able to gather the courage to leave such a cult. I think that would be interesting to people. I mean, this is something you grew up in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from childhood, it's ingrained in your mind that there is a person who stands between you and God, that everything in this world was created by a being that was powerful enough to create it, yet there is a human who stands between you and that creator. And you owe allegiance to that human, that person who claims to be this the supreme leader of the organization, and everything they say cannot be contested because they are the representative of the creator of the entire world. So how could you question what they say?
And when you're born into it, that's just normal. It's just the way that you experience reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as we got older and started to question things, there was a lot of pushback too. We were told, if you talk about this, people won't believe you. We're well connected enough. We have enough money that we can cover up our crimes. And so if you report them, They'll think that you're just making things up. They'll think that you're just crazy, which seems to be happening. The thing that really gave me courage to speak out for the first time is when the Chad and Lori Daybell case hit the news. Not sure a lot of people might be familiar with that because it was a national, made national headlines, where they found the children's bodies buried in their backyard. And and then that's when Homeland Security was contacting me because I have family members who are personally and in business connected to the Daybells. So it gave me the courage for the first time to think, if I speak out, people might believe me because there's this connection here, and there is evidence in this other situation, and it made me think. It gave me enough courage to actually speak out for the first time to law enforcement.
And so you gather this courage after all of these years of suffering abuse in a cult, and what does law enforcement do? They turn around and re-victimize you. And I think that it's also interesting to point out that a lot of this stuff, and when you see CPS doing crimes to people, when they are trying to take kids without a warrant, when they're trying to do these things, they always do it on a Friday or a Saturday. And I just want to point that out without getting into specifics. But, we keep seeing that over and over again, too, that when CPS decides they're going to come and victimize a family, it's always on a Friday or a Saturday. And this is something I know from knowing lawyers here in New York, where I am, who work against CPS. They tell me that all the time. Oh, it's a constant thing. They take them on a Friday. You can't get in front of a judge till Monday. And if they had a warrant, let me just say this. If the Lawrence County Sheriff and the juvenile officer, whose name is Jen Pierce of Lawrence County, if they had a warrant, they would have taken this baby already. But they do not have a warrant. And it's clear to me, as clear as day, that they don't have a warrant, because if they did, they'd be with the full force of the law, kicking in doors and taking that baby. But nobody has to respond to that. I understand it's something you can't talk about. I just wanted to say it because it's something that I have noticed, and I don't think they have a warrant. and I think they need to get one if they're so hell-bent on taking this baby. Let's turn to a better topic, and that is, Arianna, how is the baby? I like to hear these little cooing noises in the background. I'm sure people are wondering, how are you doing with your newborn baby under all this stress? How's the baby?
The baby's doing really well. I'm taking good care of him. He's breastfeeding well, and he was born very healthy and a good size, and he's already growing, and he's starting to open his eyes and look around, and he knows my voice, and we're just focusing on bonding and making the most of the time that we do have. So.
Well, I hope that time will not be interrupted. I would like to remind Lawrence County CPS and Children's Division that removing a newborn baby from a new mother, from a bonding mother, is doing brain damage to that child. It is proven by science. You want to be a person who believes science? Well, then believe this. Removing a newborn baby from his mother will cause neurological damage. And if you can't prove that this baby is going to be in worse condition than that, then you have no business taking this baby. There is no reason why justice cannot go through, the wheels of justice cannot turn while Arianna is in possession of her baby, and that baby has possession of his mother. There's no Christy, do you agree with me that there's no reason why this court process that you're going through can be done while the baby is safe with mom? Why can't the court process continue? Why can't we go through this without ripping baby away from mom based on nothing?
I mean, that's common sense to me. I mean, really. And, there's the people that are watching this are not only on Facebook, but every court officer in the court that we're in. And that, I'm very outspoken, and I hate that I can't talk about anything. I hate it because I think it's against our constitutional rights. But yeah. A judge has ordered it, so I have to abide by it. But I do want to say something generally, that we need to become better advocates in the U.S. for victims of crimes. I mean, these two parents, I mean, I have 6 kids myself. Now they have 8 kids. You have to be so strong when you have a traumatic background like they've had. Like you said, to leave a cult, to go to another state, to flee, and then have your family taken away from you. I mean, something is wrong with our country when we are making victims, when they are
Yes,
being
something is very wrong. Yes.
They're being victimized, the victims. I mean, that's like blaming a rape victim. I said that earlier. It's like blaming the rape victim for the rape. And this is what's happened to this family. And I mean, I think it's tragic, and something is wrong with our legal, judicial, law enforcement in this country, because this is not the only story. This has happened in other places. I mean, all you have to do is
you're
go,
right.
You know, and like you said, the cult thing that's a big issue in America.
It is.
Right now.
It is a big issue. And you're right, Christy. There is a big problem in this country when our law enforcement is victimizing victims. This is outrageous. And we do need to do a better job of supporting victims of crime. You know, Jared and Arianna, I just want to thank you. And I want to say, don't be, and it's hard to say this because how could you not be upset by what's happened to you? But you did the right thing by coming forward. You did the right thing by leaving. You did the right thing by going to the law enforcement. And it isn't your fault that our law enforcement is so terrible that they can't realize and recognize victims of crime. We're seeing it in the judiciary all the time in family court. NBC just did a 2-part segment on how judges do not recognize domestic violence and have put children in the hands of murderers and rapists. What I have been uncovering, what Michael Volpe has been uncovering in St. Louis and the surrounding counties, is now being talked about on a national scale, on a global scale, because right in the UK, they just passed legislation in the UK that makes it a crime for family courts to ignore domestic violence. So this is something, and this is what we're talking about. Cults that are perpetrating domestic violence, child abuse, and other domestic violence on their members. It's the same thing. And these court systems and our law enforcement are either I don't know what it is. They're either too stupid to recognize domestic violence, or they're not properly trained. I don't know, but it's happening, and it's happening at an epidemic level. Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, I was just going to say, having talked to so many of the victims regarding these custody cases that you've been uncovering in St. Louis County and other places where they're putting the children back into the abuse situation, you know, father or mother. And it's so crazy. And I think, you know, the Cope's story is powerful, because that will be, I sent them a quote actually this morning, or to Jared. Their story is going to help somebody else get through this. And their story is going to have other victims come forward and say, we went through the same thing. We're not alone. And there's power in numbers. And that's what's going on. That's going to really clean up, I think, family law court in Missouri, is because you see all these women now that have come forward saying,
and men,
and some men, that this happened to me. This happened to me. One client I just got from Jackson County, she told me, I have clients at almost all the counties in Missouri now. And she said, you know what? My own family did not even believe me until I met Megan Fox and all of these other people. My own family did not believe me. And then when people start coming out of the woodwork and start talking, and they're in the media, that's how this is going to be defeated. Because
that's right.
One person going to talk to one congressman or whomever,
it's not enough.
Not believe you. But when you have 1,000 people banging on your door saying, you need to do something about this, this happened to us. And
I agree. That will make a change. Jared and Arianna, Christy was just saying, I know you can't hear her. She was just saying that there's strength in numbers, and that your bravery is going to help someone. It's going to help someone else come forward and say, this happened to me too. And that's when this is going to change. And Christy was also mentioning how many victims of the court system have come forward to her and come forward to me and have joined together to say, this is happening to us. So I want to commend you for coming forward. I know it was difficult. And the first time we talked, you didn't want to say it, you know, and that's okay, because it's really tough to say I was a victim of a cult. I was a victim of this kind of mind control, because that's what it is. It's brainwashing and mind control. And to stay quiet about it is death. It's death. And I want you to go ahead, and if you had anything to say about that, please do.
I would like to say to anybody who is suffering from cult activity to get away, get as far away as you can, and talk to people. Tell people what's happening. Make your voice heard, and other survivors will hear you, and they will help you. Even though we're still going through a difficult time with the crimes committed against us and recovering from the trauma we've experienced, we have people who are helping us. We have people who listen, like Christy, and are willing to fight and help you recover and get your rights back.
Right. Yeah, and that's really
I worry that the opposite is true, that when they see what we're going through, it's going to make them less likely to want to speak up, because they're seeing what's happening, and they're seeing that could happen to them too.
Well, certainly.
So
when
I guess I would just reach out to them personally and say, well, you might not get the support that you want from law enforcement or from government agencies, but as a victim, to victim, I am here, and I am not going to stop standing up and fighting. And so you can join me in that fight.
Yeah, I mean, it is really upsetting when you come forward to law enforcement and then they treat you the way they've treated you. But I mean, at least Homeland Security was listening and is investigating. And I hope that's an avenue for you going forward, that you can reach out to them and ask them to intervene in this case. I can't imagine that they don't have some kind of jurisdiction over an investigation they're already looking into. They did tell you, Arianna, Homeland Security, they chose your case as being one that was most prosecutable. Is that correct?
That's what they said when they flew out to Missouri. They said that they had canvassed a number of victims, and then they had honed in on the 2 or 3 cases that they felt like had the most evidence and that were most prosecutable. So there is some hope there. But yeah. I think that there are some jurisdictional issues where their investigation is centered in Utah, and these incidents have happened in Missouri. So.
All right. Well, one of the commenters in the chat room just said that I contacted the sheriff on the form on the website and told them that people all over the U.S. are watching this Cope case happening under their watch. And I think that that's a great thing for you to do, for the public to do. Let them know this will not happen under the cover of darkness. Whatever they are trying to do to this family will not happen without us watching and reporting on what's going on. Public pressure is what these people need to follow the law. That's all we're asking here. All we're asking is for you to follow the law. If you want to take custody of this baby, go get a judge to put his name on an order. Not a CS-33 form. Go get a warrant from a judge honoring these people's Fourth Amendment rights, because they have a right to have their baby without an unlawful seizure. And that's exactly what a CS-33 form is. If you don't have exigent circumstances, it is an illegal seizure. And you will be held accountable for it, Lawrence County Sheriff's Department. You will be held accountable for it. You will be held accountable by the press. You will be held accountable by the Copes, because they will go after their rights. I believe they will. Jared, are you willing to go after your civil rights if they are violated? Are you going to hold these people accountable for doing that?
Absolutely.
And you have a right to do that, because this is America and not North Korea. So if all we're asking is that the sheriff of Lawrence County, Sheriff DeLay, follows the law. If the juvenile officer wants to take custody of this baby, go before a judge, get a warrant, and get it signed by that judge. Because taking a baby on a CS-33 form who was in no danger of anything, and exigent circumstances, by the way, are not subjective, contrary to the sheriff's deputy and the sheriff's lieutenant who told me they were. Exigent circumstances means immediate danger of death or dying. Now, that has been decided in multiple court cases, and you can go look it up, Sheriff DeLay, because you know I'm right. You know I'm right. You know it's not subjective. Please stop saying that and stop training your deputies to say that exigent circumstances are subjective. If you think that's the case, then I would encourage you to look up Sean McMillan in California and see how many people that he has successfully sued for millions of dollars because they thought exigent circumstances were subjective. Sir, they are not. Christy, go ahead. I see you want to. You have something to say.
I'm just saying that I get calls every day in many states about constitutional rights being violated, and so not to go into any great detail, but there are many people, many lawyers that will jump into a constitutional law fight, and if that's where Jared is heading, and he mentioned, I would be glad to take that case, and that would be totally different, and hopefully we could talk in that case. But the constitutional rights are so fundamental to who we are, and our liberty interests are being violated every day. And parental rights, that's you have to have a compelling interest to take a child. That is one of your highest liberty interests that you have. I mean, the Supreme Court
has already ruled that terminating parental rights is akin to a death sentence. That is in Troxel versus Granley, I think, and that should be, that is the standard. Theta Person is in the chat section, and I wanted to share her comment with you because Theta is a mother who lost her child to murder because they would not listen to her in family court. And she says about the gag orders, they wanted me to stay quiet about it when Judge Thomas Frawley and guardian ad litem Nathan Cohen conspired and wrongfully removed my children from me. Now my disabled child, Christian Ferguson, is missing and dead. That's what happens when you sentence people to silence, and you do not allow evidence into court, like Theta's evidence was not allowed into court, and they took her child wrongfully and gave him to his murderer. This is not something this is a very important topic. It's a very important thing for law enforcement to understand. You must do what the law requires. We're not going to sit around and watch you violate the law without saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, I think that we have pretty much covered what we can cover. Would you agree, Christy?
Yeah, the court officers, I'm sure, are watching this, and they're watching me very closely with what I say. And I'm on the radio, and I have a lot of outlets, so I don't want to harm their case, obviously. But I will fight to the end. I'll tell you what, I will fight to the end for these people, because what happened to them was wrong, and I will not rest until justice is done. So if anybody is watching, I'll do everything in my power. I can't obviously guarantee anything, but the one thing I can't stand is injustice, and that's what's going on right here.
It is unjust. You're absolutely correct. Jared and Arianna, thank you for being here, and please do keep us updated as things go, when you can. And we will be watching this very, very closely. Jared, you have a great attorney. She is willing to fight for you to the very end, and we were going to follow it to the very end. So I'll let you close out the show, Jared, or Arianna, if you have anything else you want to add. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to say thank you to everybody who has supported us up to this point. Your prayers and your support is helping us deal with this very difficult situation. So thank you. We ask you that you would please spread the word. Please share the links that are provided for you. Let people hear this. Let people know what is happening in their country or in their state.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. Take care of that baby. And I'm so happy that your baby is healthy and happy and bonding with you, Arianna. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, Christy, thanks for being
Megan,
here.
you know what? I just want to put a plug in for you. Thanks for covering this, because, a lot of our local news stations are not covering anything in these cities, as you found in St. Louis. And
Terrible.
we're up against
I know.
the wall. So I appreciate you putting your neck out there too, because this has been
Absolutely.
a way for victims to have a voice as well. So
Absolutely. And I'm not going to stop doing it either. And the state of Missouri, can go pound sand if they think I'm going to go away, because I'm not. And this is going to go on till we have some kind of resolution. I'm like you, Christy. I hate injustice. It is something that I cannot cannot turn away from. I sometimes I wish I could. I wish I could turn it off and just enjoy my life. But I can't, because injustice is absolutely something that I cannot sit back and watch without trying to do something about it. This situation is totally unjust. I am tired of victims of crimes being punished for being victims. I'm done with that.
Yep.
And I think
Amen
the entire state of Missouri, the people of Missouri need to rise up and say, no more. We're done with this. We will not be punishing victims for coming forward about crimes. We won't punish them for coming forward about child sexual abuse. We saw what happened to Michaela Haynes. She killed herself, 14 years old, because no one believed her, even though her rapist was in jail for raping her sister.
That was tragic. I know.
It's so tragic when we don't believe victims of crimes, when there's hard evidence that crimes happen to them. This has got to stop. And I don't know why Missouri is, you're going to be the test case, Missouri, but it's, this is what happens. And Missouri is now under the spotlight, and it's not going away. If anything, the spotlight is only growing now with NBC on a national level doing 2-part series about how courts are ignoring domestic violence.
Yeah. And I think now, it took a long time to get lawyers even to take the St. Louis cases. So far, we have the HIPAA case with one attorney that took that case, and I've been taking a lot of the custody cases. But I think that the more that we talk about it, that hopefully I'll be able to get some help, and we'll be able to have more lawyers to be advocates for them, because
I agree.
I can do everything I can, but I'm just one person too. But I'm telling you that what they're saying is true, and all these victims, we need to help. I mean, they need help so badly. It's very bad in our state, but it's also going on. I've been contacted by people in other states that have similar.
Me too. All over the place. Baltimore, Maryland, Washington State, California,
Colorado,
Florida, Colorado, Douglas County, especially. So many different states. Texas, Tarrant County, Texas. This is going on all over the place, and it is just going to be, it's an uphill battle, because there's very few of us that want to talk about it.
And for any of the people that know lawyers or have a lawyer, this is going to be work for a lifetime. So if you're unemployed from COVID or anything, you could jump into this and make a big difference, and you could help these people, and you would have work forever. Because I'm telling you, I get calls for people that I just have to turn away, because it's just,
I know,
too much. And it's just same with you. It's hard to keep track of all the people that are calling us. I know that you feel the same way. You get all the calls.
It's very hard to keep track. Very hard to keep track. And of course, we can't help everybody who contacts us, and it's very hard to turn people away, because there aren't many places to send them to. So it's very difficult. There are a few out there who are doing this kind of reporting. Patrick Howley at the National File, he's doing this kind of reporting. And Mike Hicksonbaugh at NBC, he does some of it. That's someone you could reach out to. And now we have NBC National that's doing some of this with divorce court. So it's a difficulty, but I mean, it is starting. I think the dam is breaking. I think it's starting to leak.
I do too.
Yeah,
I think so too.
And pretty soon.
Some of the people that were at your press conference in St. Louis contacted me, and one in particular was actually that happened to a man. And he told me, he said, in terms of this family law court corruption, he said, I think this is the great awakening of that. He said, I think that people are going to be brought to justice, and the time has come. It's been going on a long time. A woman contacted me that happened 20 years ago to her in St. Louis County. I mean, people are fed up and done.
That's
and
right.
Even though you and I are just two people, we have strong wills, and so we're not going to stop.
It's true. We're a lot alike, Christy. It's funny. I feel like I've made a friend for life, you and I. There's just, when you meet somebody, who's a kindred spirit,
That's right.
This is just, it's great to meet a lawyer, though, who will fight for these people, because it's very difficult to find them, because these cases can be so, and because it's so frustrating with family court, how it's not like a real courtroom. You go in there and you're like, what is happening here? Why is everything behind closed doors? And how come they're making decisions without being in front of the judge? And why does a judge just dismiss my motion and I don't get to argue it? How come this stuff is happening? It's tough.
Yeah, and if you go to, and lawyers experience this when you go to other counties and whatever area of law, it's challenging, because you're the outsider and you have to figure out who's who. And in these family law cases, you either have attorneys that are, you know, afraid when they come in, or you have attorneys that are working with the other side. And you know, we see that a lot in St. Louis, that the attorneys are actually working for the opposition.
Yeah, they're working on behalf of your opposition, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I've seen that multiple times. Multiple times.
It's hard for people to find. Like, that's a great point. I mean, for my clients, they've said, "Oh my gosh, I've been through 5 attorneys." You know, and then you look at their work and you're like, "Well, are they incompetent? Are they in collusion?" And I mean, half of it, you have to be a private investigator to try to figure out what's going on. It's just the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
so
I
crazy.
agree. I agree. Keep up the good work, Christy,
Thank
and keep me updated as much as you can. And I know that you're going to do the very best you can for this family. And we are all very interested in how this unfolds. And just so that the sheriff and the Children's Division understands in Lawrence County, we're not going anywhere. I'm going to be on this to the very end. Whatever you do to these people will not be done in the dark. Just keep that in mind. And I think sunshine is a great disinfectant. I believe that we need the public to be completely aware of what's going on in these family courts, completely transparent. Transparency is what we need here. We need if you all at the Children's Division and the Sheriff's Office are doing everything right and by the book, well, then you shouldn't be worried about us looking over your shoulder, because then, you know, I could report, wow, what a great sheriff is following the law. If Sheriff DeLay goes and gets a warrant, if he wants this baby so bad, well, then I will report, well, at least he did the right thing and did it legally. But don't make me get on here again and report that you've stolen a baby without a legal warrant, because I really don't want to do that. Let's all act within the law, within the scope of the law, and stop giving juvenile officers the power of a judge when a judge is not on duty. That's ridiculous. That needs to change. And if anybody in Missouri lawmakers are listening, you need to change that right now. You need to write a law that says juvenile officers, CPS, do not have the authority of a judge. That's outrageous.
I do want to say, because we discussed this, I could talk about this generally in general, but you know, the way it works is, generally a social worker will make the referral, as we said, and they'll go to the juvenile officer, and then they can take the baby into custody, into care, and then the judge can sign off on it. Depending on the time frame, if it's a weekend, you have to wait until the judge comes back, and then you have a hearing. So your hearing's at the end, the baby's gone, or the children, or whatever the case is, and it's reverse due process. And so I've argued this in other cases too, that it doesn't make any sense to me that the hearing's at the end. How is that due process?
No, unless the Fourth Amendment says you have a right not to have an inappropriate search or seizure without a warrant, unless there are exigent circumstances. If they cannot show exigent circumstances, they are not legally allowed, whether they think they are or not. They are not legally allowed under the Constitution of the United States to take a child without a signed warrant by a judge, period. Unless they can show, and the burden of proof is on the state, unless they can show that that baby was in imminent danger of dying. And if you can't show that, Sheriff DeLay, if you cannot show that the Cope's baby is in imminent danger of dying, you are going to lose in front of a federal judge. You will lose that argument every time. And you're not going to be in front of your family court law judge that you know real well, that you buddy with. You're not going to be in front of that judge. You're going to be in front of a federal judge. So nonsense with your everything is an emergency, whatever I say it is an emergency. No, it's not. And if you need to be told that, I'm not sure you should be a sheriff.
So I can't comment on that.
I know, but I can say whatever I want. Christy's just going to sit there and smile, and that's fine. You have a professional responsibility as an officer of the court. You can, and you're doing the right thing for your clients, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say that I think Sheriff DeLay needs to rethink his job prospects if he continues to act in the way that he's been acting towards this family. Get a warrant, Sheriff. You know this. You've been to cop school. They're supposed to teach you that in cop school. You took an oath to uphold the Constitution. So gosh dang it, uphold the Constitution, and we won't have a problem here. So thank you so much, Christy, for fighting for these for your clients. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
Okay. So thanks, Megan. I appreciate it.
All righty. Take care, everybody.